Polar bear, you don't notice the danger when everything goes quiet. It's not the cold. It's not the emptiness. It's the fact that something is already waiting and you're the only thing that has to move. This is a polar bear, a predator that survives by turning stillness into a weapon. It's not a land hunter. It's a marine system pretending to walk on ice. It waits, doesn't chase, doesn't search. It stands over a hole in the ice, motionless. Minutes pass, then hours. And when something finally surfaces, it explodes, grabs, locks, drags it back under. No struggle lasts long in freezing water. This happens because seals don't have a choice. They have to breathe, and the bear doesn't need speed. It just needs inevitability. But here's the part people miss. The ice isn't where it lives. It's how it hunts. Take that away, and everything collapses. It doesn't starve immediately. It adapts, moves inland, searches. But nothing on land gives what seal fat does. Not enough energy, not enough density. So it keeps moving, burning more than it gains. But the real problem isn't the bear. It's the system it was built for, no longer existing in the way it used to. We didn't remove the predator. We removed the platform. And without it, the hunt doesn't fail, it disappears. Grizzly bear, the danger isn't how strong it is, it's how many ways it can survive. Because you can't predict something that doesn't need one strategy. This is a grizzly bear, a generalist, built to turn almost anything into energy. It's not a predator, it's a decision maker. It digs, rips, flips entire sections of earth, tears roots out, pulls animals from underground, turns soil like it's soft, then it moves. Finds berries, eats nonstop, switches again to rivers, stands still, then strikes. Pulls salmon out mid-current, bites, drops, grabs another. It doesn't maximize precision, it maximizes opportunity. This works because it doesn't depend on one food source. If one fails, another replaces it. Energy comes from everywhere, and that changes how it behaves. But here's where it shifts. When food concentrates, so do they. Dozens gather at the same river. They don't fight constantly, they organize. Larger bears take position. Smaller ones wait, adapt, circle. It's not chaos. It's structure built from abundance. But the real power of a grizzly isn't what it eats. It's what it moves. It pulls nutrients out of rivers and carries them into forests. Fish becomes soil, soil becomes plants, the system expands outward from its behavior, and then humans step in, not as predators, but as disruption. We change where food exists, where space exists, where movement is allowed. And suddenly, the most adaptable animal in the system has to start choosing between survival and conflict. American black bear. The mistake is thinking it's harmless, because it doesn't look like a threat, and it doesn't act like one, until it learns. This is an American black bear, an omnivore that survives by adapting faster than its environment changes. It's not built for dominance. It's built for adjustment. It climbs. Fast. Up trees. Out of reach. Not just to escape, but to eat. Fruits, leaves. Insects, it doesn't hunt much, it gathers. Moves quietly through forests, taking what's available. This works because it doesn't need high-energy food. It survives on volume, consistency, not risk. But here's where it changes. When forests shrink, it doesn't leave. It shifts. Moves closer, finds new sources, trash bins, gardens, farms, easy calories, no hunting, no effort. And it learns fast. Patterns, timing, human behavior. It stops being wild in the way you expect. But the real problem isn't that it comes closer. It's that it gets smarter in our world. It knows when we're not around, knows where food repeats, knows what doesn't fight back. And unlike larger bears, it doesn't confront. It avoids, which makes it harder to stop. We don't see it as dangerous, so we don't treat it like one. But adaptation doesn't need permission, and the more predictable we become, the more efficient it gets. Not stronger, just better, at living around us. Asian black bear, you don't expect it to come from above. Because danger usually comes from the ground, from in front of you, from something you can see approaching, not from something already watching you from the trees. This is the Asian black bear, an omnivore that survives by owning the vertical space. It's not a ground animal, it's a climber that happens to walk. It moves upward, fast, hooks claws into bark, pulls its weight like it's nothing. Then it disappears into the canopy. Feeds where most animals can't reach. Fruits, nuts, honey. It doesn't compete, it avoids competition entirely. This works because the forest isn't just horizontal, it's layered. And most animals only use one level, but it uses all of them, which means more access, less conflict, more control. But here's where it shifts. When forests break apart, the layers collapse, trees thin out, food becomes scattered, and the distance between resources grows, so it comes down, closer to the ground, closer to humans, not by choice, by necessity. And unlike other bears, it doesn't hesitate as much. It reacts, fast, sometimes aggressively. Not because it's naturally violent, but because the margin for error is smaller. Less space, less escape. But the real problem isn't the bear's behavior. It's that the environment it was built to navigate is being flattened. And once you remove the vertical world, you don't just change where it lives, you change how it responds. Giant panda. The strange part isn't what it eats, it's what it is. Because nothing about this should work. A body built for meat, living almost entirely on plants. This is the giant panda, a carnivore, surviving by forcing itself into a vegetarian system. It's not efficient, it's persistent. It sits, grips, chews, over and over. Bamboo. Again. Hours pass like this. Most of its day is spent eating. Not because it wants to, because it has to. This happens because its body never fully adapted. Its digestive system still works like a predator's. It can't break down plants properly, so it compensates with volume. Consumes more, you get less. Energy comes in slowly and disappears quickly, so it doesn't move much, doesn't chase, doesn't explore, it conserves. Every action is measured, but here's the part that changes everything. It didn't evolve to be efficient. It evolved to be alone in its niche. Nothing else competes for bamboo like this, which means stability, as long as the system holds. But the real problem isn't the panda's limitation. It's how narrow its world is. When bamboo disappears, even slightly, there's no alternative, no backup strategy, no shift, just pressure. And that's where humans enter. We protect it, breed it, restore its habitat. Not because it's strong, but because without intervention, a system this fragile doesn't recover on its own. And what survives in the end isn't efficiency, it's protection. Sloth bear. You hear it before you see it. Not footsteps, not movement. A sound that doesn't belong in something this large. Loud, rhythmic, like something pulling air out of the ground. This is a sloth bear, an insect specialist built to turn small prey into survival. It's not hunting animals, it's harvesting colonies. It tears open nests, rips into termite mounds. Then it lowers its head and inhales. Not bites, not chews, sucks. Hundreds at a time. The sound carries through the forest. Constant, mechanical. This works because insects don't run. They gather, dense, predictable, everywhere. And the bear doesn't need strength to overpower them. It needs access. So its body shifts. Long snout, flexible lips. Even its teeth leave a gap, so nothing blocks the suction. Everything about it points to one thing: efficiency at scale. But here's where it turns. This system only works in intact environments, where colonies are stable, where ground isn't constantly disturbed. When that changes, so does everything else. Food spreads out, becomes harder to locate, and the bear has to move more, search longer, take more risks. And when it crosses paths with humans, it doesn't retreat slowly. It reacts instantly. Because it's not built to assess threats. It's built to respond fast in close range. But the real issue isn't its aggression, it's how specialized it is. Once you depend on something small, but everywhere, you don't notice how fragile that system is until it starts disappearing. And by the time the sound stops, it's already too late. Sun bear, you don't expect the smallest one to be the most precise. Because size feels like power, like control. But in a dense forest, size becomes a problem. This is the sun bear, an omnivore that survives by fitting into spaces others can't use. It's not built for strength, it's built for access. It climbs, fast, effortless, moves along branches like it belongs there. Then it stops, finds a hollow, and reaches in, deep. Its tongue extends, longer than you'd expect, slides into cracks, pulls out honey, insects, anything hidden. It doesn't break everything open. It extracts. This works because the rainforest isn't open. It's crowded, layered, tight. And food isn't always visible. It's buried, sealed, protected. So instead of forcing entry, it reaches inside. But here's where it changes. When forests disappear, so do the hidden spaces. Trees fall, canopies open. Food becomes exposed or gone entirely. And the bear comes down, moves more on the ground, more visible, more vulnerable, and easier to target. But the real problem isn't its size. It's how specific its world is. Once you're built to exploit what's hidden, you depend on complexity. And when that complexity is removed, you don't adapt by becoming stronger. You lose access. Spectacled bear. You don't see it clearly. Not because it's fast, but because it doesn't stay where you expect it to be. It moves between levels, between ground and trees, between one environment and another. This is the spectacled bear, a herbivore that survives by navigating vertical landscapes. It's not a ground feeder, it's a climber that feeds above. It climbs, slow, deliberate, builds platforms in trees, breaks branches, pulls plants closer. Then it eats fruits, leaves, cactus. It doesn't chase food, it builds access to it. This works because the Andes aren't flat. They rise, shift, layer. And food exists at different heights, so movement becomes strategy. But here's the part that matters. When it eats, it moves seeds across distances, across elevations, from one part of the forest to another. And new growth follows. It doesn't just survive in the system, it shapes it. But the real issue isn't how it feeds, it's how sensitive that system is. When forests shrink or fragment, those pathways disappear, movement breaks, seeds stop traveling, growth slows, and the system begins to thin out. We don't notice it immediately, because nothing dramatic happens, no sudden collapse, just less and less, until the structure that depended on movement no longer holds. Brown bear. The mistake is trying to define it, because it doesn't stay one thing. Not in size, not in behavior, not even in what it eats. This is the brown bear, a generalist that survives by becoming whatever the environment allows. It's not specialized. It's flexible. It digs, feeds, hunts, or doesn't. Switches constantly. In one place, it eats berries all day. In another, it stands in rivers, catching fish. Some grow massive. Others stay small, not because they're different species, because the environment decides. This works because it doesn't rely on one system. It spreads risk, takes from everywhere, adapts to whatever exists, and stores energy when it can. Then winter comes, and everything slows. Heart rate drops. Movement stops, but not completely. It can wake, react, move if needed. This isn't full shutdown, it's controlled survival. But here's where it shifts. When food becomes limited or unpredictable, flexibility has a cost. It has to travel more, compete more, take more risks, and that's where conflict begins. But the real nature of a brown bear isn't power, it's possibility. It becomes large when the system allows it. It becomes opportunistic when it has to. And when humans change that system, we don't just affect its behavior, we reshape what it becomes. Kodiak bear. It doesn't look real at first, not because it's aggressive, but because of the size. Because nothing that large should move that easily. This is the Kodiak bear, a brown bear shaped by isolation and abundance. It's not a different kind of predator. It's the same system pushed further. It walks heavy, but not slow. Steps steady, controlled. Then it reaches the river and waits. Salmon push upstream, packed, relentless. And the bear doesn't rush, it stands in position. Then strikes, pulls one out, bites, drops it, grabs another. It doesn't finish what it catches, because it doesn't need to. This works because food is everywhere, more than enough. So behavior changes. It doesn't defend every meal, doesn't fight constantly. Other bears stand nearby, watch, wait. Hierarchy forms, not from violence, from recognition. Larger ones take center, smaller ones adapt around them. And the system holds, but here's what matters. This only works because of abundance. Remove that, and everything shifts. Competition increases, tolerance disappears, and size becomes a liability. Because large bodies need more food, more energy. But the real nature of the Kodiak bear isn't dominance. It's what happens when a system provides too much. It grows, expands, stabilizes around excess. And the moment that excess changes, the balance doesn't bend, it breaks. Himalayan brown bear. Nothing moves quickly up here. Not because it can't, because it shouldn't. Every step costs more. Every mistake lasts longer. This is the Himalayan brown bear, a survivor shaped by scarcity and altitude. It's not built for abundance. It's built for endurance. It walks slowly, across slopes, thin air, searching, grass, roots, insects, anything that gives energy. It doesn't hunt often, because chasing here costs too much, and failure costs more, so it conserves, takes what's easy, avoids what isn't. This works because survival isn't about gaining more, it's about losing less. Energy becomes the rule. Everything is measured against it. Then winter comes, and the system shuts down. Snow covers everything. Food disappears, and the bear retreats. Heart slows, movement stops. Time passes differently. But here's the part that matters. There is no margin here, no excess, no backup. If the season is too short, it doesn't recover. If food is slightly less, it feels it immediately. But the real problem isn't the environment. It's how little room there is for change. When humans move higher, build roads, expand into mountains, we don't just take space. We compress what's already limited. And in a system like this, you don't need a big disruption to cause failure. Just a small shift, repeated enough times, until endurance is no longer enough.